Hey, I wanted to make a quick video and kind of pass on knowledge because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it actually, because obviously I don't want too much competition to compete with me, because I'm not that good in the type. I don't think I'm that good in compared to other people that can teach the content. But that's not to say that other people are not happy with my content. There are obviously over 4,000 students that are happy with my type of content, and I'm sure there's about 1,000 students not happy with my content. That's generally my analytical understanding of my content so far. I have different content online, so I am definitely able to speak about this. I have over 8 years of experience as well in teaching and mentorship across universities, vocational school, online learning, online sites such as Wingfox. So I do feel I can give you some of my pointers. So I wanted to talk about first how you can empty your mind and share your knowledge, right? So we're talking about paid courses and what makes a paid course different from a YouTube tutorial that I'm like this one that I'm making, right? So I'm making now, I'm stopping, saying maybe sometimes I am talking faster than I would if I was making a tutorial for a paid course. So one of the first thing I would probably do is I would generally take notes. I would try and figure out the chapters, what should contain in each chapter. I would try and get it as correct as possible. I would look for alternative information. I would take notes from different places so I could express and share the most accurate information as possible. And then I would think about what's the most reasonable next topic and how do they connect to each other, right? So in my case, if I'm doing lighting courses, I want to figure out when is the best time to explain color, and should I talk about color before color palette, or should I talk about color palette before color, right? And so on. And then I would go into more detail, and I would break down the next stage, which is I'm writing down a general script, and I would think about how can I best structure things, and also how do I explain it. So here it says what is light, there's a content for it, and then I say use of image and Unreal Engine, so I use that as a method to explain the verbal context. And then here you can see I am using draw in Photoshop or use Photoshop. So here I'm using Photoshop to express it. And then here you see go through image and explain bounce light. Here you see use pictures, so I am structuring every video down, and I come back and I write down the time spent. So I do have a time budget I try and stick to. So if I think I have too little content, I might re-record something and say, okay, I can increase this to 10 minutes because it's actually a very important topic. So I would then just keep going, and I would just try and organize in such a way that it makes that is at least makes sense to me, that like this is what would make sense to me, and this is how I started learning compared to being a customer for other people. So I would think about, when do you talk about shadow? Do you talk about shadow in this context? You would have to translate it into your expertise, but in my case, do I talk about shadow before I talk about light? Probably not. You want to understand light before you can understand shadow. Otherwise, if you try and understand shadow, in my head, it doesn't make sense to talk about shadow before you talk about how light is, how it functions, And then inverse square law, it doesn't make sense to start a tutorial talking about this is how inverse square law is, and then this is how color works. It starts getting unorganized, it starts getting unstructured, and it doesn't connect the dots. So eventually I would go to 3-point lighting, and then I eventually into the engine. Then how do you set up everything? How long does it take to do it? And then where does color come from? Then color temperature, then type of additive, subtractive color, RGB, other color models, color and tone, how does that connect? Then a lot about history about color, so you understand the actual history of color and how it actually connects. Then I talk about color scheme. Then light has value, so you understand gradient and contrast. So it becomes very complicated, and you should take your time to write down as much as possible. And then in my case, I stopped taking notes on my 29th video because it was very practical, and this all kind of goes back to connecting it to the theory, which is the first chapter. There's a lot of theory, but even though I show it with pictures, I show it in real, it's still very important theory. So 50% approximately was about theory. The remaining 60%, 70% tends to be practical, and then I try and connect it back. So because you understand how things function in the real world and how your eye function, how your real world dynamic theory works, you are able to understand the mechanical and technical things. So you learn, at least for my courses, my intention is not to trust the technology. I don't want you to believe that the technology is doing the work for you. That's why I focus a lot about specific content before you even get into the engine, because then you have been trained to a certain degree to question it and to be able to adjust it to the point where it is actually supposed to be correct. And I say correct in a quote because there's artistic expression as well and intention. So then I just basically go through every possible topic I could think of that I think you should be able to understand. Then I come back and I would start tracking specifically how long every video is, how much hour I've been spending. Through this process though, and even before I start recording, I might make some PowerPoints to help me visually. So I will make them. 2 seconds. So I will make pictures and I will kind of structure a lot of the key content. So this is almost 10 hours worth of slides, right? So I put them in and I have that as a go-to when I do the lectures, when I do the tutorials, and I even use this now today in my mentorship. So when you sign up for my mentorship, there's a lot of content I have pre-made that makes it very quick for me to pull out something and teach you something very quickly. It saves you time and saves me time as well, because these things are timeless. So I spend a lot of time making content that is timeless, that it's not going to change anytime soon. None of this is going to suddenly be wrong anytime soon. But a lot of the technical things, they will be outdated, they will be wrong. You might say something that's not correct, basically. And then eventually I have other contexts where I just take down notes. This was probably my first one where I tried doing it, and I was like, okay, this is the setting for the light. Then I translated it to this one, as you saw, and then eventually it became this complicated one. And then I have other clients for schools and university. In this case, this was a quick introduction for beginners in Maya and Arnold. And then again, we're talking about 276 pages. Again, when you do written content, it's different. But I can talk about that another time in detail. If you're interested, please leave a comment. Today, it's mostly about video content. And you can see I structure them and I try and keep them between 6 to 10 minutes on average, if it's not very important. So you are able to click on the topic you need very quickly, and you can easily figure out what you want to watch and what you're trying to learn. And you can skip content a lot easier than you can with a lot of the videos you find online, which are paid. They are structured in a way that you don't know for sure what's in the video, and you have no way of being very particular in saving your own time and figuring out what you need to do and how you can do it, right? These are just some tips. There's a lot of more tips, such as making sure you tell the people what they shouldn't be buying, why they shouldn't be buying your course. It's a very efficient way of doing it, especially in terms of marketing, because when you say that you shouldn't buy this course, because what it happens, it narrows down the client base. So if you didn't mention the one person in the list of people that shouldn't buy, that person identifies as a client and will buy your course most likely, because then they feel and they kind of understand this is actually for them, rather than a tailoring to a mass market. Because when you tailor your courses to mass market, you have to market it to a mass market, and that's very expensive as well. Again, that's a different topic altogether. I'm more than happy to teach you marketing courses, making, framing things, and so on. So these are some of the pointers. So make it organized, make it structured. Don't go into Unreal and start making stuff and then telling, which I do on my YouTube. It's free for a reason. But if I were to do a mentorship or a paid course, especially if it's a paid pre-recorded course, you want to make sure that you don't confuse the viewer. Don't go saying one thing here and then showing another thing on the left side. A lot of people, they will show you the complicated stuff for like 10-15 minutes, and then 5 minutes later there is actually an easier way of doing it. It should be opposite. You should be showing the easier way first, so people can skip the 10-15 minutes because maybe they don't have the ability to understand it, like me, or I don't have the time. That's not really why I'm watching the tutorial. It's not vitally important. This makes it harder if you don't actually structure your tutorial. So you would have structured it like, this is how you use the inspector, or this is how you use your outliner or details, and then the next video would be, this is how you do the same by using commands, and this is how you do the same again using editing the files in Unreal Editor, or so on and so forth. Right? I hope that makes sense. I don't want to get too much into the details. Again, leave a comment. And again, I do provide services. I can help you make your course. I can help you structure your course. It doesn't matter what topic it is. As I said, I have 8 years of professional experience besides the game industry, in teaching, in structuring things, in pedagogy. I have masters in education, so I'm pretty confident that if you are doing something like this, even if you're making something competing, I will help you make the most out of it. So hopefully this is useful. You can find my course as well as wingfox.com. It was one of my earlier courses that I tried doing on my own, but it wasn't my first. I have a lot of failed courses other places that probably still exist and are pretty useless. Is this my best course today? No. It's still a lot way better that I could have done it, which is also why I'm talking about it, because I'm reflecting over it. I might make some new courses in the coming months if I think there is a need for it. So thank you for watching and have a nice day. I need to get ready for work.